Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen nabiyyina Muhammadi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'du, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to FiqHour. We have a theme for today. Let me just remind you of our theme for today. The theme is how should Muslims behave and act in the workplace, dealing with prayer, explaining it to non-Muslims, shaking of hands, alcohol, and other corporate gatherings. So let's start with that, inshallah. And please do remind me if I miss anything out. So, firstly, the workplace itself. Let's set some principles out at the outset. It is an obligation on the man to earn a livelihood. Now, this obligation comes upon him when his father's obligation over him ceases. So a father's obligation to provide is when he has children and they are below baligh age. So therefore, the father has a responsibility to provide for his son when he is under baligh age, provides a house for him, provides food for him, provides clothing for him. When he reaches baligh, then the father is no longer responsible. However, we live in a society now, and in the kind of methods that we have and the practices that we have, which is that a person, a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, which is sort of roughly the baligh age, is still considered as a child by the state and would be still supported by the state through child benefit. So this is what we refer to as urf. And we don't see many people at the age of 14, 15 being allowed to leave education. So therefore, we will, based on urf, extend that to 16. Now, after 16, the father is under no obligation to provide for his children, his son. If his son says to his father that, look, father, I'm going to go and study further. I want to become a whatever, I want to become a solicitor. In order to become a solicitor, I have to do 2 years, my A-levels. After 2 years of my A-levels, I'm going to do a degree. Okay, so now the father, so he will discuss this with his father, because what he's basically asking his father is, I want you to support me for the 2 years that I'm going to continue to live in your house, because it is the father's house. And for the 2 years, I want you to support me for food and for things like that. His father may say to him, look, I've got no problem in having you live with me. However, when it comes to other things, I'd rather you got a weekend job, and so that you could also provide and support the family. The father is more than entitled to say that to the son. And that's up to the son now to go and look for something on the weekend, maybe, that can bring in something, whether it's working in a takeaway or whatever. If he's obviously passed his test as an Uber driver, whatever he decides, that's something the father and the son can negotiate between them. After 18, obviously, now the child, the adult now, may decide that they want to do further education. And in order to do further education, they may say, okay, I'm going to now travel across I'm going to travel across to Manchester, for example, and I'm going to study there. Now the child, the adult may decide that, okay, I'm going to get a student loan. I'm going to get a maintenance loan. I'm going to get all that. That's obviously for that individual to take on board themselves. Walaikum salam. That's up to the individual to take a message doing what's excellent. No problem, Abu Bakr. I'll pick that up probably late this evening, inshallah. So I will respond to you. Don't worry about it. Because straight after I go off air, I will have some guests over and some family over. So therefore, I will be tied up a little bit. But inshallah, as soon as I become free, I will pick that message up, inshallah. So as I was saying, when it comes to after 18 now it's up to the individual to decide what they want to do with their future. Obviously, they take mashwara from their father that this is what I want to do, that's what I want to do, I want to do this. And now they move on to whatever, uni, a job, whatever it is. Now, again, the son may speak to his father and say, look, father, I want to still stay with you. And the father says, that's absolutely fine. I've got no problem with it. But I'd rather, now that you're earning as well, I'd rather you also provide it to the household. Okay, it's not that the poor father should continue to take the burden. So you may say to the son that I want you to give X hundreds of pounds per month, and therefore you can help me in providing and looking after the family. Okay, because the son has decided to stay with his father. The son may say, "Oh, actually, you know what, father? I want to move out, and when I move out, I'm going to provide." Obviously, when he moves out, he's going to provide for himself. That's completely his choice. So that's I think this was important just to give a little brief background so people understand what the responsibility is. So the responsibility then for earning is upon the male when he is above baligh. That's the responsibility on the man to work. Now we find ourselves obviously here in the UK, for example, so we have to work. So we will go to wherever there is a halal way of making an income, wherever that might be. Whether we take up a skilled job as a a tradesman, electrician, plumber, carpenter, or we're a little bit more kind of academically inclined. So we go for, I don't know, being a scientist, being a pharmacist, being whatever, or we're more into numbers, accountancy, or some kind of professional job, or we want to move into the medical sector, or we want to move into the service sector. Whatever we decide, as long as it is halal, we are obliged. When I say we, men are obliged to earn. One is obviously they're earning for themselves. And as soon as a man has reached bulugh, then as soon as possible, obviously taking all situations into consideration, he should be looking to get married. Okay, he should be looking to get married. So when he does get married, now, as we've discussed in previous sessions, it is the husband's responsibility now to provide for his wife as well. So if he's in a working environment, and that's what the whole topic was about, that was raised, that what are the kind of, how do Muslims work, behave in a working environment? So many of people, I'm always surprised to say that the conversation about salah is one of the last things that they have a conversation about. So one is, for example, they take up a job. Okay, once they take up a job and they say, do you have any questions? Usually when you're doing an interview, they will do the interview for you, and then they will say to you, do you have any questions? Or do you have anything you say? Then you will now say that, okay, what do you have in place for faith arrangements or people of a minority? So they may say, okay, can you go into more detail? So you say, for example, I'm a Muslim and I pray. I'm required, obliged to pray. Could I work around my breaks and my lunch times in order to pray? And now, because obviously with the way the laws are, and the fact that discrimination is aimed to be removed, for them to discriminate against you because you're choosing to pray in your own free time, they will not be able to do that. And this is grounds, obviously, for taking this up with an employment tribunal. So therefore, you should have that conversation about prayer should be made at the outset. So at least you know that you've taken this job. No point taking the job, and then you say, "Oh, I got to pray dhuhr." You say, "Well, actually, you never mentioned that during the interview. You never mentioned it after the interview." And now suddenly you're imposing your faith upon us. And that's where this problem comes up. That you're imposing your faith upon us now. That this is something that we didn't really agree to. Hence the reason, have that conversation during your interview. And if during the interview they don't want to provide for you, whether they want to say that outright to you or don't say that outright to you, then at least you're not in an uncomfortable environment. Now, when it comes to working, you've now kind of agreed the arrangements about salah times, whatever. Then obviously it's your responsibility in the right way and in the right manner to start making people aware of your religion. You'll find some people may say to you, "Oh, that's strange because so-and-so is a Muslim. He doesn't say that." Or how come you're different than so-and-so? So you're not here to answer for all of Muslims, and you're not here to answer for all of Islam. So all you will say is, look, this is the way I practice my faith. I'm not here to judge or question or analyze or assess what every other Muslim is doing. That's their own issue. I'm telling you what I do. Okay. Oh, are you a bit extreme? Not really. Okay. This is our faith. Now, some people may choose not to practice their faith fully, and some people may be a little bit pick and mix when it comes to their faith. But as for me, I'm a consistent person. I apply the religion in its totality, and I don't like to mix things and things of that nature. So you set the case out early. So now you can make people aware. So, for example, some of the times when for organizations in which there are non-Muslims, I work with that are Muslims, they beforehand, I do a visit that, oh, Mufsab, he doesn't shake hands with the opposite gender. Mufsab won't feel comfortable in an environment where there's music. Mufsab won't feel comfortable. So all those issues, which are my obviously religious concerns, they are already relayed to them through a third person. So there's no awkward situation where somebody sticks their hand out and you're kind of like deciding whether to do this or that and all the rest of it. So there's no awkward conversation at all. It's very nice, it's very clear, and it's very smooth. Okay. And if it's done like that, so that's the kind of conversation you got to start having. Now, it might be that you have a friend there or somebody you become very friendly with. Okay. Obviously, it's going to be somebody of the same gender as you, and you become quite friendly with that person. So now you can say to this person that, look, there's a lot of awkward situations that I feel it's important that you become aware of. I don't go down to the pub on a Friday. I don't, and explain to the person why. I don't go out for Christmas dues, and explain to the person why. I don't celebrate Christmas, so I won't feel offended if I don't get any Christmas cards. Don't worry about it at all, honestly. And you got to kind of go through this. And like I said, if you've got somebody who you're quite close to, that you become friendly with, you become familiar with, and they can act as your proxy, they can act as your wakil, and they can sort of, when they're in the staff rooms, say, look, let me just tell you a little bit about Muhammad. These are the circumstances, these are situations. And as long as you continue to be a friendly person, meaning you don't start putting up walls and start acting strange and weird and awkward, okay? So they kind of think, oh, like, it looks like he just wants to be on his own. But you are friendly, you can crack the odd joke, you can, you're relaxed, you're whatever. Then they think, okay, this person is okay, but he has certain principles that he lives by. Fine, we accept them. And that's not too strange now anyway. There's many women who feel uncomfortable when a man touches them, places their hand on their shoulder or places their hand on their arm or rubs their back or anything like that. They don't like that. Now, they may have allowed the shaking of the hands because it's a professional environment, but they may say, well, anything beyond that, we feel uncomfortable with. So there's nothing wrong in saying that I actually feel uncomfortable with that as well. And if it makes life easy for people, then like you don't shake women's hands, and don't shake men's hands either. Why? Because there's not an obligation to shake a person's hand when you meet them. So once they see that you're standardizing it and you just say, hi, how are you? And you kind of make sure that your sort of hands are to your side or your hands are in your pockets or something like that. So you're kind of sending a signal here that I'm not going to shake a hand. Don't necessarily cross your arms, because crossing your arms is sending a signal that I'm not interested in you. I don't want to talk with you. I'm building up a barrier. So maybe hands in your pockets or hands behind your back or something like that. So you're giving a shout out. And like you don't shake the hand of a woman, don't shake the hand of a man either. So then you can't be accused of sort of differentiating. You can't be accused of being sexist. You can't be accused of being misogynistic, that, oh, he thinks men are better than women and all the rest of it that's going around at the moment. So standardize it. Say, look, I don't shake anybody's hand then. Make it nice and simple. Even if there's Muslims, you don't need to shake the Muslim's hand. You can just say Assalamu alaikum to him. There's not a requirement to shake hands. So you got to look at each case. I've given you some general overview, some general sort of standards. Let me just quickly jump on to make sure I've covered all the questions that he's asked there. How should they act in the workplace? Dealing with prayer. I've done that, explaining it to non-Muslims, shaking hands, alcohol, other corporate gatherings. So I think I've, alhamdulillah, covered that in great detail. Let me see if there's anything else that's come in that is to do with work related. Is there anything that's work related? Okay, some questions do come up work related, so let me just pick those up. Children who go to high school, like secondary school, I think the sister is saying, because there's no such thing as high school now. High school used to exist. Is it still called high school? No, I think it's called secondary, isn't it? Primary and secondary now. I think back in the day, they used to be first, middle, and high, back in the day. There used to be 3 levels of schools. Now there's just 2. There's primary and secondary. So I'm assuming you're referring to secondary. Children who go to secondary school are during the school times. Children who go to high school are during the school times. I don't know what that means. What should they do about Friday prayer if they cannot leave school for longer period? What they should do, and that's the thing, is that it depends how long now your child has been at the school. And this is what sometimes as Muslims we do, is, our child could be at school for like a year or years, and then suddenly we say, oh, where are the arrangements for Jummah Salah? And the school will say, well, we've had Muslim children here for so long, and no one's asked for that before. So this is a bit unusual. So what should happen is that children are, required to pray. So what they can do is make arrangements in the school. Now, obviously, this should be done properly through discussion. Again, not imposing one's faith on a secular institute. Remember, a school is a secular institute. Apart from obviously if it's a faith school, then it's not a secular institute. But even when it's a faith school, we will say that it's a faith ethos school. It is not. Even then, schools are still secular organizations. That's why they come under the remit of government, and they come under the remit of the Department of Education, and they are supervised and assessed by Ofsted, which again are secular organizations. So there's no point in imposing our faith onto somebody and changing the whole timetable because X number of students want to pray Salah. So there should be somewhere raised that, oh, we'd like to raise this. So raise it with the class teacher. Again, if you've got good relationships with the class teacher, you'll find the class teachers will support you. Trust me, I've been in the teaching game for 20 years or something. And if ever I found parents who were, supportive of the school or this, you would go that extra mile to try to accommodate them. But if you've got that kind of parent that's always complaining and moaning about every single thing, you just kind of think, okay, here's another thing that this person's going to complain about. So you should, and remember, these people are educating your children. So it's all right, you can shout and scream at them for the 2 minutes that you see them, but don't forget the 37 hours or 20, whatever, 30 hours they see your children. So have good ties with your teachers. So you could raise it with the class teacher and say, look, my son's joining, and obviously he prays Friday prayers, and Friday prayers is quite important. And the teacher might say, oh, I didn't know Friday prayers was that important. Is it that important? So now use the opportunity for you to educate, or say, oh, has no one mentioned it so far? No, they haven't. Fine, let me tell you. But obviously be educated in the matter yourself before you start having this conversation. So once you've had this conversation, they may say to you, actually, you know what, you're better off raising this with the deputy head, because, I don't have that kind of jurisdiction. I'm only a class teacher. So if you raise it with the deputy head who's in charge of pastoral care, I'm sure they'll be able to do something. So that's it. Organize a meeting, have a chat with the deputy head who's in charge of pastoral care, for example, and have that conversation there. They may say, actually, you know what, this is absolutely spot on. We're glad you raised it, but I feel it's important that this conversation should be heard by the head teacher. So you might have the conversation with the head teacher. Now, the head teacher may not be in a position to make unilateral decisions. Okay, so they will raise it with the governors. Okay, most schools will have a governors or some kind of governing body that manages the school. So they will flag it up with the governing body to say, okay, we've got a handful of parents that want their children to pray Salah, and the children themselves want to pray Salah, because that's important. It's no point in you saying, oh, we want our children to pray Salah, and your children are saying, we don't want to pray Salah, because that will definitely irk the school, because it will, as though, again, that you're getting the school to impose religious positions onto their children when their children are not willing. So it's very important that before you have this conversation with the school, is have a conversation with your child and tell your child, please be honest with me. Don't just blag me and say you want to pray Jummah Salah when you don't want to. I was called in to a kind of a skills based educational establishment. I knew the chap that ran it, and I had a meeting with him, and he said, look, explain this to me. He says, look, we had a lot of Muslim lads, and I think it was like a car mechanic course, and they kept saying to us, oh, we want to go for Friday prayers. We want to go for Friday prayers. You only give us a short lunch hour. You give us a short lunch hour. So we thought, you know what, let's do that. So we gave them an hour and a half lunch. Okay. Because, but what we were seeing them do is they were just stood, they were at the bottom of the street smoking a spliff and getting burgers, and just sat in the cars eating burgers and smoking spliff. So what kind of a message is that sending this non-Muslim business owner that is providing this kind of experience to these Muslim lads, They've asked for Juma Salah. They don't go in for Juma Salah. Instead, they're smoking spliff at the bottom of the street and get an extra half an hour lunch. Whereas the non-Muslims are only getting an hour. So there's no fairness there. How can there be fairness? So we become like a special group of people that want special treatment, like we're a spoiled child. And if we don't get it, we're going to stamp our feet and we're going to start screaming and we're going to start shouting and we're going to start bawling. And this is the thing. This is an immaturity as a community that we have. And it shows a lack of education, and it shows a lack of, being honest with ourselves, never mind being honest with the people that we request these items from. So that is an answer to that. I'll pick up your phlegm question in a bit, because let me just cover the questions which are more to do with the topic that we've selected today. I didn't let my child go to Christmas dinner, but in the school it is like a one-dish party, nothing to do with Christianity. But he was the only one who didn't go and felt left out. Yeah, in certain circumstances, sister, you have to kind of take the bigger picture and think, well, okay, it's not really a Christmas dinner, which it isn't now. Because what they do is, even though we finish school in July, the way schools look at it now is that there's 2 times where you finish the year. One is when you finish the year, the school academic year, and one is when you finish the school calendar year. So when it gets to December, naturally humans start to think, oh, it's end of the year, let's relax, let's chill out, let's have parties, let's do this, let's do that, and all the other. And then there's one, obviously, which is at the end of the academic year, which naturally, you're going from year 3 to year 4, or you're going to go from year 4 to year 5 or whatever. So there will be get-togethers or whatever. So as long as you, again, have that conversation with your class teacher. At this particular stage, the class teacher will have a lot of influence, because most of these eating and parties, or whatever you want to call them, will be taking place in the classroom rather than whole school policy. So again, you can have a word with the teacher and say, look, as you can see, we're Muslims. We take our religion seriously, and obviously we don't want any, and we're not permitted, and I choose not to as well. Sometimes you've got to say I rather than we're not permitted, because they'll kind of think, well, think for yourself, for crying out loud. So you just say yourself that I don't feel comfortable, and neither would my children feel comfortable if they're celebrating other faiths. So can you make sure that whenever that you have this little end of the year, end of the calendar year get together, munch, whatever you want to call it, that obviously there's no element of Christianity in there whatsoever. And I'm telling you, if you have good ties with your schools and your teachers, they will listen. The only time when I've seen schools object to it is when Muslims are a very small minority, and then they become very vocal. And the school feels as though its ethos is being attacked. The school feels as though its whole kind of culture is being attacked. And therefore, naturally, it takes a very aggressive, defensive posture. And that doesn't help anybody. Eventually, it's the poor kids that suffer. So those poor children's education gets affected. So therefore, there's got to be some sensibility around here. And that's the thing. If you want to send your kid to a posh school, you say, oh, I don't want to send my kid to these inner city schools because, he's going to end up, getting into fights. And they say, oh, I'm going to send him to some suburban school. Well, you're going to send him to a school on the outskirts of Bradford, for example. I'll use my own city. Then obviously you ain't going to find many Muslims there, because Muslims live in certain areas of Bradford, for instance. And therefore, you're going to find that if now you're going to come and say, oh, I want this, I want that, I want this. Well, they're going to say, well, hold on a second. If that's what you wanted, why didn't you send your child to a Muslim majority school? Why did you send your child to a Muslim minority school and then start imposing your ways on us when you're a small minority? Whereas if you send your kid to a school that's in inner city Bradford, then 99%, 97% are going to be Muslim anyway. So the school is not going to have any problems, because the whole community is Muslim. So it's going to be able to. So it's about common sense, isn't it? It's not about, oh, I'm going to go to some posh school because I think their education is better, but I'm still going to impose my religion on them and say, no, I don't care if you've only got 2 kids out of 1,500 that are Muslim. You're going to have to provide halal meat for everybody. Well, they're going to say, whoa, slow that down a little bit. So we've got 1,500 pupils and only 2 are Muslim, and you want everybody to get halal meat? Why don't we do the other way around, where everybody gets haram meat? Well, obviously they won't use that word. So can you understand that? And this is where, and then we make a big issue. We start getting on social media, start taking pictures, start waving banners, start stamping our feet, saying, oh, look at this. They're doing haram upon our Muslims. Their children, they're feeding them haram. But whoa, let's get some context. How did we get to this stage? Okay, how did we get to this stage? And let's explore that first. So I think I have covered all the questions that I was required to do from the perspective of the theme for today, which was the theme was how Muslims should act in the workplace, dealing with prayer and explaining it to non Muslims, shaking hands, alcohol, and other corporate gatherings. And obviously, by extension, we've also done uh, schools as well, which are, workplace for children. Let's not forget that's their day job. And also, by extension, colleges and universities as well. But feel free if there's some questions which you feel that I need to unpack a little bit more. I'm more than happy to do so. However, in the meantime, I'll scroll back up now and pick up some of the questions that were asked at the outset that weren't specifically to do with the theme. Wa alaikum salam. Bleeding and pus breaks, I think that's pus with a single S, breaks wudu. Is there a condition that if it happens only on the body parts which are washed for wudu, or can it be from any part of the body? Example, a knee. It can be from any part of the body, and when it comes onto the skin, that's the only reason it means is the skin. Because if you have an open wound but nothing comes out of it, then it's okay. Your wudu does not break, as disgusting as that sounds. You have an open gash across here, as my skin splits, but nothing comes out of it, then it's fine. But when it reaches onto the skin and flows on the skin, that becomes a nullifier of wudu. My second question is that in Maliki Madhab, joining prayers is allowed. That's absolutely correct. It is permitted. What can be the reasons behind it? Is work meeting can be a reason? Secondly, is it allowed without a reason? In the Maliki school, they allow it due to traveling, okay, due to excessive, weather, poor weather. They're the main reasons that they allow it for. They won't necessarily allow it for because you're struggling to make a work meeting. But I don't know how long the work meeting will be, because apart from in winter, each salah has got a good 3-4 hours space, hasn't it? Dhuhr 12:23 to whatever it is 3:30 or something. So it's got you've got quite a bit of space there. That's 3 hours, and then Asr, from there till about 6 o'clock ish. So again, you got quite a bit of space there. Maghrib, yes, but Maghrib technically you can pray up until Isha time. Yes, it's better to pray in the first 15-20 minutes, but in certain circumstances. But again, I would say this, and this is why I always say that if you had to, whilst you were in a meeting, go answer the call of nature, would you get up or would you not get up? So if I'm in a long meeting, that I know is going to last more than an hour, and suddenly I have an urge to go to the toilet, I won't say, oh, I'm just going to sort of cross my legs and just hope that everything works out all right. And I'm just going to, rock back and forth and just ride it out. You need to go toilet. You just get up and go. So similarly, if it's salah time, the fard only takes 3, 4, 5 minutes. It doesn't take that long. So even if you have to get up, go to your office, pray salah, and come back, then it is what it is. But like I said, if people get used to you and they know that this is what you do, then it will become a norm. It only becomes a non-norm when suddenly we start doing it and we suddenly start asking for things when we've not done for last 2, 3, 4 years. So it's got to be that, look, when you're kind of talking about yourself, you sat in the office and someone says, oh, sister, or, well, they won't call you sister, but they'll call you by your name. Oh, how are you? All right. You got any kids? And you say, yeah, I've got like 3 kids. Oh God, where are they? Teenagers. No, gup shop. No, teenagers, one is that they're all at, middle school or whatever. Oh, goodness me. Yeah, whatever. And the chat goes on. Oh, you're married. Yeah, I'm married, this, that, and the other. Okay. All right. If you don't mind me saying, you're a Muslim, aren't you? Yeah, of course I am. You notice I've got my scarf on and all the rest. I wear my jilbab. Yeah, I pray 5 times a day as well. Perfect. It's an opportunity for you to get it in there. I pray 5 times. Oh, 5 times. Goodness me, that sounds like a lot, doesn't it? Well, no, not really. When you think about it, okay, and then now, tell them the times. I pray this. Okay, so you pray one before you come into work? Yeah, you do. I do, and I pray one when I get home at night, and I pray one as well, just literally as I walk in through the door. So what do you do for the other two? Oh, the other two, one I pray at lunchtime. That's why you might see me disappear for a bit, and the other one I pray in the afternoon. Oh, right, okay. So when we have meetings in the afternoon, is that a concern for you? Say no, actually it's not. And there you go. But if you're not having that conversation, and you're like hiding, and like, oh, when am I going to say this? When am I going to have this awkward conversation? When am I going to have it? And then in the middle of a meeting, you say, I've got to go pray Asr. And obviously they think, whoa, where did that come from? So it's about being, sensible. Is phlegm with blood equal to a size of a pound coin comes out? Does that break wudu? Oh, goodness me. I don't know how you'd measure it, but it's always precautious that when you taste blood in your mouth or when you spit out blood, it's always better to make wudu. It's not going to kill you to make wudu. So, that would be the most appropriate way. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, all is good, mashallah. I, as a mother, thought about it and are thinking whether to allow him. Yeah, the only reason I sort of disappear for a little bit is because I'm sending the TikTok videos. And like I said, I can only do 10-minute slots because I can't go live on TikTok yet. I, as a mother, thought about it and are thinking whether to allow him in the future, thinking about what is celebrated, which is the title Christmas dinner, but eating together. Yeah, maybe, I don't know, sister, how many Muslims are in that class. Now, if you've got quite a lot of Muslims in that class, then, because what they'll do, you see, is they'll have Christmas dinner, then they'll do Eid dinner as well. So, and they'll see non-Muslims think, well, hold on a second here, mate. We're not just celebrating Christmas, we also celebrate Eid as well. So you're not being fair. Say, look, fine, then don't celebrate Eid either. You're not obliged to celebrate Eid. Say, it might be in your faith that you can, or whatever beliefs you have, that you can celebrate the Hindu celebrations, the Buddhist celebrations, the Jewish celebrations, the Christian celebrations, and the Muslim celebrations. That's all good for you. Live and let live might be your philosophy. But Muslims' philosophy is a little bit different. We're not permitted to celebrate anybody else's religious, or even if it's got a religious title, celebration, because we're not permitted. We're only permitted to celebrate the Muslim ones. But if as a school you're saying it's one or the other, then don't do the Muslim ones either. We're more than happy. We will not feel any way that you are doing a disservice to the Muslim community or to your Muslim students or your pupils if you did not have an Eid celebration or an Eid party. But likewise, then scrap all the rest as well. Then they can't turn around and say, oh, yeah, but we're a Christian school. Now, if they are a Christian school, yes, you have a problem. If it's such and such St. Philip's Catholic school, then obviously, that's what it says on the tin. Surprise, surprise. Obviously, you're going to expect a little bit of Islam there. No, Christianity there. Similarly, if the school is a Protestant school and it clearly says that, then that's the case. But if it's an academy, which has no religious inclination whatsoever, then they cannot technically have a Christmas meal unless they do the other faiths as well. Okay. And that's where the issue will come in. So this is, again, a conversation that needs to be had. But a nice, educated, mature conversation. No fist thumping, no heavy breathing, no shouting, no screaming. Nice, educated conversation. Is it haram to make dua for non-Muslims who have died? As we've seen on the news recently, Aaron Bushnell had done the ultimate protest and took his own life in the name of Palestine. Muslims are now taking it upon themselves to pray for him and encourage others to pray for him to make it to Jannah. Is this allowed? Good question, Iman. And it's good that we get some contemporary questions as well. When a non-Muslim is alive, you can make any type of dua for him. Okay, when a non-Muslim is alive, you can make any type of dua, a worldly dua and a dua of the akhirah. For example, a worldly dua would be, oh Allah, may Allah grant you beauty. Yeah, you can say that for a non-Muslim. May Allah grant you beauty. May Allah grant you wealth. Nothing wrong with that. You can also make dua for his akhirah, implying hidayah. So may Allah bless you with heaven. Now, if a person says, oh, wait a minute, how can you say that to a non-Muslim? Yes, but he's alive and you're saying, may Allah bless you with heaven, implying, may Allah grant you Islam, which you then accept, and then as a consequence, He gives you heaven, but you're just doing a shortened version of it. Okay. However, if a person dies, okay, if a person dies, now this is the key bit which I've not seen in the conversation so far. We don't know what faith Aaron died on. Okay. We don't know what faith Aaron died on. Okay. Now, I'm not saying I've not followed it, apart from the obvious, where I saw the clip of him walking with a canister of accelerant, and then he pours it on himself and he lights himself up. That's the only bit that I've seen. I've not followed the story at all. So I don't know if he's made a clear declaration of his Christianity or his disbelief in Allah. But we don't know whether he has accepted Islam before he did that. Okay, we don't know that. We don't know if he secretly accepted Islam. There were many people who secretly accept Islam, but because of the work that they do, they cannot openly say that. So, why are we saying anything when we don't know what the halat of that person is? Okay. But if we know a person is clearly a disbeliever, meaning the last words he utters, like we saw Abu Talib mention on his deathbed before the angel of death took his soul, that I die upon the faith of Abdul Muttalib. Similarly, if somebody says on their deathbed, utters words of kufr, or utters, or testifies the faith of kufr, then it's a clear case. But from the clip that I've seen, he only walks across in front of the Israeli embassy in Washington, mentions why he's doing what he's doing, lights himself up, and then he shouts "Free Palestine" a few times before his injuries, he succumbed by his injuries. He does not make a declaration of any faith in that episode. Obviously, he dies, I think, that same day or a day or 2 days later. So again, we don't know what he uttered before he died. Okay, we don't know what he's saying. So why are we making our own deen problematic by declaring somebody to a Muslim or a non-Muslim? Allah knows best. Okay, Allah knows best. And we leave it at that. So I hope that answers that. My student also asked me if we can say to non-Muslim friend, rest in peace when their relative passes away. Again, on that same point, if we know the person to have died not on Islam, then we cannot say rest in peace, because we know that a person who dies on other than Islam is not going to rest in peace. We know that. Okay. And for us to ask Allah to do something which He has told us He is not going to do, no matter how many times we ask Him, even the Prophet ﷺ was said that whether you ask for 70 times or not, they will not be forgiven. So the Prophet ﷺ said, I will ask more than 70 times, until the verse came and the Prophet ﷺ was even banned from going close to their graves. Okay, so that made it absolutely, khalas. Okay, rest in peace. That's it. So rest in peace means it's like a dua. The bit that's missing is may Allah rest you in peace. Now, if a person denies the existence of Allah, he denies the existence of Allah. He does not believe in Allah. He does not even believe He exists. He's saying, mate, what are you talking about? Have you not followed the evolution theory? We are just, atoms, compounds, amino acids, amines come together, bit of electric shocks up and down our nervous system. We grow, we eat, we die, and we go to nothing. That's it. Now, if that's what that person believes that when he died, in fact, he's asked to be, what's the word? When you're burnt after you die. Cremated. Thank you. So he's asked to be cremated. He doesn't believe in God. He doesn't believe in Allah. And he's asked to be cremated. How can you now say rest in peace when that person is saying to you, I don't even believe in God? So who is going to make him rest in peace when this person doesn't believe in Allah? Okay, doesn't believe in Allah. So that's why it's completely problematic. The whole concept is completely problematic. Okay, so therefore we leave that to one side. Okay, we leave that to one side. So it's not valid. But like I said, we don't know the halat of anybody who passes away. And as the famous saying goes, don't judge a book by its cover. But even though a person might not look Muslim on the face of it, you don't know if they've got iman on inside. Don't get me wrong. That does not mean that we should not practice our faith. Of course, we should practice our faith, but that does not mean that that person may not have iman on the inside. What if he accepted iman as he was walking up to light the fire? Obviously, without knowing that suicide is a sin in Islam as well. What if his intention was never to kill himself, or if his intention was he was hoping that somebody would come out and extinguish the fire? The fire would only last for think about it. He's literally starting a fire outside the most protected embassy, probably in Washington. So clearly he thought somebody would rush out and put the fire out. Maybe that's what he was hoping for. Allahu Alam, we don't know. Controversial thought. Oh, here we go. But I think it's particularly difficult for kids to spend all day at school and then come home before being sent to mosque again for a few hours. It becomes a 12-hour day for some kids. I know as adults, we complain having to do a 9 to 5, yet kids are expected to so much more. I know mosque is equally important as school, but how do we reconcile the two? There must be another solution. Yeah, there was another solution, Iman. You were experiencing the other solution. That was the reason behind that solution, was exactly that point. So it's frozen. I'm sure I'll come around. Absolutely, I 100% agree with you. I could not disagree with you. Add to that that most that come from an ethnic minority background, especially those that come from the Pakistani ethnic minority background, more than the Indian ethnic minority background, do poorly at school. There's no two ways to say it. They do poorly at school. In fact, that was one of the rationale why I was involved with Olive Secondary School, was for that very reason, because people did approach me and said, this is what you need to do. And I understood the rationale for it as a role model to show that, yes, you can succeed. A brown person, a Muslim, can succeed. You can do well in your education. You can get a degree. You can get qualification. You can become religiously aware of your faith as well. And at the same time, you can have a good behavior, good akhlaq, good character, being honest, being fair, and all the rest of it that comes with it. But even that is still challenging. Okay, it's still challenging because of the fact that the hours are still long if you're going to try to do both, really. So I 100% agree with you that it is challenging. Okay, and it's how you kind of circumvent that and work with that. Isn't saying RIP a bit of an arbitrary gesture? I think you mean empty gesture. It means absolutely nothing when you think about it. Yeah, absolutely. It's because RIP, as I said, I think if you look into it, I guess its origin will be in Christianity, in which it was a dua, okay, which was may God rest, allow you to rest in peace. The only reason why that beginning bit doesn't exist anymore is because there's a lack of Christianity even in England now, isn't it, in the UK? So that's why that bit's gone. So that's why it's just RIP. So people who are non-religious or don't care too much about religion can also use it because they think, RIP. What does it mean? It doesn't say may God put you, rest you in peace. So that's where it comes from. So it is a sort of supplication. There's no two ways of looking at it in that way. Hence the reason why, for a person who we do not know, and because the Zahiri ilms tells us that this Aaron wasn't a Muslim, that's what Zahiri ilm tells us. We don't know what Batini is, but from apparent, we don't find any declaration. So we go upon what we expect, what the apparent tells us. And the apparent tells us there's no declaration of his faith. There's no video with, La ilaha illallah behind him on a flag or something in which he makes a pledge to Allah or to his prophet. So there's nothing like that whatsoever. And he was raised as a non-Muslim, the only bit that I know. So therefore, it apparently looks like that's what he was. So we can obviously go by apparent in cases where we cannot dig deep But should we make decisions on it? No, in our hearts we shouldn't. But as muftis have to give fatwa. So if a mufti gives a fatwa, then he will look at the apparent and he will say, based on the apparent information that we have, it seems as though he's not a Muslim, therefore it is not appropriate to say rest in peace, because we don't know if he converted secretly. But that's how the mufti can only give a fatwa. He can only give it on the apparent. He cannot see in the unseen. Only Allah sees the unseen. No, there was no declaration of him being Muslim, but there is knowledge of him being from a religious background. There you go. So you would go by that. Okay, you would go by that. You would go by the apparent. A mufti gives fatwa based on the apparent. He does not give based on conjecture, speculation, or anything of that. And he has to go with ghalib al-dhan, which means his most predominant thought based on the evidence that is available. Similarly, when a judge judges in a court, he can only go by the evidence that is available. And if the evidence suggests that this person is innocent, then the judge will say he's innocent, even though the police will say, no, this guy is guilty as heck. But it's just we cannot submit that evidence into the court because, it was collected in the wrong way, or it was collected without a warrant or whatever. The judge will say, I can only judge by the apparent. And that's the only evidence that I see in front of me. And therefore, I'm going to judge according to that. The reality of things, Allah knows best. Okay, let me just pick up a few questions which I think came up on the Telegram channels. Let me see. I think it was the chaps one. Where have we gone? Assalamu alaikum. Family from the UK, like in Medina. I think that must be live in Medina. Is it permissible for a woman to travel from Medina to Mecca with other women to perform Umrah? The husband will perform Umrah beforehand and stay at home with the young children. Both parents wanted to take it in turns to perform Umrah in Ramadan and feel it would be too challenging with the young children. No, a woman, as I've mentioned in previous positions, when it is traveling for more than 3 days, or the distance that would take, obviously, to travel for more than 3 days, which is 55 miles, would require a mahram. And obviously, I think it's about, near enough 200 miles or something between Mecca and Medina. So no, not to be permitted for those who apply the Sharia. Salam. Intention to rent it out. However, I wasn't able to. I now want to sell the property and it's on the market. Is there any zakat payable on this? No rent was ever received from this property. No, because when you bought the property, when you bought the property, you bought it with the intention to rent it out, not with the intention to sell. So there will be no zakat due upon it. Obviously, when you sell the property, you will get some asset, won't you? You'll get money. Now, obviously, whenever your nisab calendar date comes up, and if that money is still in your possession, then you would give zakat on it. Okay, that's that. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. What is your opinion on Islamic mortgages? Are they halal even though they sell their contracts to mortgage regulators and the contracts are not 100% halal? Wa alaikum salam. That's the age-old chestnut thing, isn't it? Let's put it this way. They are the only or the nearest alternative that Muslims have. So it would not make sense to say to you now, don't use them. It is a solution, the best solution that's available within the current market. Hence, if a Muslim was to use it, they would not be considered as being sinful, bearing in mind that the ones that they're using have reputable scholars that sit on the board and they do carry out their due diligence and do their assurance and auditing. Not just that they certify the process, they actually assess, audit, and assure the process as they go along. Okay, whilst we wait for some more answers to come, let me tell you what the theme is going to be for tomorrow. So a little bit more academic, really. There is another one as well, which I have for Sunday, inshallah. So we're okay now for Saturday and Sunday. For tomorrow, inshallah, the theme. Well, when I say Saturday, I'm going to say the next one, because no point saying Saturday, because Khudana Khasta, if I'm not available on Saturday, at least then you're not thinking. So on the next fiqh hour, we will be talking about the hadith. What are the hadith? What does the chain mean of the hadith? Where did the system come from? How does the system work? How does it function? How does it benefit the community by it functioning in that way? And what kind of hermeneutical authority does that piece of scripture have? So that's going to be our theme, inshallah, in our next fiqh hour. We do have one for Sunday as well, but I'm more than happy to listen to some for tomorrow for the following week. And again, I will say to the sisters that please do come forward and give a theme, because so far all the themes have been suggested by chaps. That's fine. I don't have any problem with chaps suggesting themes, but I'd also like to see if sisters are given the option and the possibility of offering them as well. So hence the reason why I'm trying to encourage the sisters to come forward with some suggestions. One other question which came in. Assalamu alaikum. I hope you're well. Wa alaikum salam. Alhamdulillah. All is good. A woman who has the money for Hajj has mahrams, but no willing mahram no mahram is willing to go to Hajj anytime soon. Is Hajj still mandatory on her, or only when a mahram agrees to go with her? Only when a mahram agrees to go with her. What is the ruling if the husband has already performed Hajj and tells his wife, I forgot to, what's it? Bismillah. Alhamdulillah. What is the ruling if the husband has already performed Hajj and tells his wife to pay for his nafal Hajj, or pay for Hajj he will perform on behalf of another if she wants him to go for Hajj with her, but she does not want to pay for his nafal Hajj or Hajj Badal, as he also has the finance to perform a nafal Hajj? She does not need to pay for his nafal Hajj if she does not want to, but then obviously she does not have a mahram. Secondly, when it comes to Hajj Badal, then the person for whom he's performing the Hajj for, they have to pay for it, not anybody else. Otherwise, the Hajj will not be done. Okay. If a woman dies without performing Hajj, can she write that money be given from the wasiyah to any willing ulama to perform it on her behalf? Absolutely, she can. Yes, she can write it in her wasiyah that I've not performed Hajj, and therefore I leave behind 5,000 whatever pounds or whatever it's going to be. Well, at this rate, it's about 10,000, 15,000 pounds, isn't it? It's quite expensive now to perform Hajj. That I leave that behind for the wasiyah to be performed by a particular scholar. And she could name a scholar, or she should name a few scholars, because it might be that scholar's dead before she died, or he dies pretty quickly after she dies, or whatever. So as long as she's named a few, then that should be fine. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Okay, so that brings us to the end. We've still got like 3 minutes or so left. So if you do have a burning question, then please feel free to fire it away. I'll give you a minute or so to put it up, and then we will shut up shop for another day, inshallah. Okay, what's the rule on neutering animals? I've heard different opinions. My cat keeps having litters and it's really impacting her health. Subhanallah. Well, what a question to finish the evening off on, Iman. I don't know if I have the stomach for it to answer that question just before we go off air. Well, generally speaking, we are not in a position to, take those kind of steps. Okay, generally speaking, where we can stop a creature having, young. Well, that's not our choice. That is Allah's choice. However, in exceptional circumstances, there is some scope of permissibility. That's the reason why you're getting possibly different opinions. Because the general position is, the usul is, the rule is, that we are not the ones who tell others as to whether they can have young or not. Similarly, that's why we can't have a permanent move to stop having children. That we cannot do that, where a woman might have her fallopian tubes disconnected or something like that. We cannot do that any permanent. We can take temporary measures for not having children, but we cannot take permanent measures for having children. So therefore, similarly in that, guys, that's the usul, that's the principle, that's the qaida, that's the rule. Okay. However, in exceptional circumstances, then we can give a fatwa on exceptional circumstances. So as long as you understand that, then you will be pretty clear on what the situation is with regard to that. Okay, so you know what is for tomorrow, inshallah. We're going to explore hadith. I do have a book somewhere. Let me just see if I do have that book at hand. I always say I do have a book somewhere and then I can't find it. Let me just see if I can find it. Where is it gone? Where is it? There it is. Okay, so this was a book I wrote on principles of prophetic traditions. Okay, so this is all about hadith. So I might just go through a few bits in this for you, inshallah, which is literally going to answer Iman's question, and that is the theme for tomorrow. Anyway, we are the end of today's session. Jazakallah khair again for a very thought-provoking session. So same time, same place. Hopefully all being well tomorrow. FiqHour. Do share the links, as I keep saying, and I've actually haven't said that for a while, actually, so I don't know why I keep saying I haven't said it for a while. So share the links, share the handles, so the people know where they go for their questions, inshallah, especially with Ramadan around the corner. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.